Welcome to Assembly Calendar. I'm Mike Friesen. With us for our program, Assemblyman Mike Norris. Now, Mike Norris represents the 144th Assembly District in New York State. That's an Assembly District that includes Erie, Niagara, and Orleans counties. And we want to thank you folks all throughout those three counties and all across Western New York for tuning in for our program today. Our job is to let you folks know what's going on here at the state capitol. Mike Norris, you are in a unique position right now of asking the folks that are watching this program, in fact, all the folks you represent, to tell you what's important to them. You've got a questionnaire, a survey, if you will, going out to all the people that you represent.
Yes, we do. I'm very proud to say last week, many surveys did land in the mailboxes of the constituents back home. We asked about 20 questions on the top priorities that you think should be included in the budget and in the agenda going forward. We asked questions regarding, for example, immunizations, whether or not you think there should be mandatory immunization for children or religious exemption. And this information is very valuable to me because I represent you. I'm your voice, and I represent many constituencies within the district. And this survey is a good barometer for me to know what you're thinking back home. I strongly encourage you to fill it out. I just happened to be at a brunch yesterday at the South Wilson Fire Company. A few people mentioned to me, we got your survey, we filled it out. I know you probably won't read the comments that I wrote to you. Well, I want everyone to know back home, if you take the time to write a comment to me, whether through email or at the bottom of the survey, I read all of those comments. I feel it's a privilege to be your representative as a state assemblyman, and if you take the time to write me a comment about something that's important to you or if you need assistance, I read them and I do my very best to either respond back or to take some sort of action to try to get a result to your problem. So please, I encourage you to take the survey. You can also go to my assembly page, just put my name in, Michael Norris, Assemblyman. The page will come right up, and under important links, you'll find a link there to our survey. And we've, in the past, done this. It's been very valuable to me, and we've had over 1,000 responses. So hopefully this year, we can get 2,000 responses because more responses gives us a better sample.
You were just telling me you wanted to do more reading, so this is a good opportunity to do that kind of reading. I got to figure you probably get a very disparate response to this thing. You're going to hear from all sorts of people who have all sorts of different ideas about what New York State should be doing.
That's right. There are, and whether it comes to like education or infrastructure, the tax relief, the size of our budget, it's really interesting to see what individuals want to see out of New York State and out of our representatives. And so I take all the information, we synthesize it, we get a good basis to where to go, and I use this information. So I strongly encourage you. It's certainly not a waste of your time. It's very valuable use of your time. And please respond, send it back to me. And if you don't have the paper version, go right onto my Assembly webpage under important links. You'll find the link there, and you can do it right online.
All right. Now, I don't know if there's an appropriate question to ask, or if you did ask a question on your survey about what's been going on with Lake Ontario. But you know, a couple of years ago, huge flooding all along the shoreline, lots of impact on people that you represent. As other assembly members, the same thing too. I mean, Lake Ontario is pretty big. So you fellas and members of the legislature have been looking into this. Have you got any kind of update as to if anything's been done? I know there's an international commission involved to try to keep that sort of thing and adjusting the water levels of the lake to keep that from happening again.
A couple updates on Lake Ontario. Right now, we know that the levels are higher than expected again. We lived through this in 2017. It was my first year in office. It was actually the moment when I realized the gravity of the responsibility of the office that I represent. When I was standing there at the Orchid Yacht Club and I saw the water coming up, I'll never forget that moment with the press and with our sheriff and our local officials and the urgency in the faces of those individuals that were being hit by this travesty. Very proud to say that we were able to work in a bipartisan manner to get $90 million in relief for the businesses and the municipalities along the southern shore of Lake Ontario. The one thing I will say is I'm a little disappointed in that some of these funds have yet to be released through the agencies, and that is very disturbing to me as your voice and as your representative. I voted in 2017, along with my colleagues, to get these funds out. So my message to you is, if you have not received your reimbursement, I want to know about it. Send me an email, reach out to my office. I will do everything in my power to reach out to the agency and see if we can get those funds released for you. There are no guarantees, but I will certainly make that call and work on that. Now, this year, we know the levels are higher. And I'm pleased to say that I joined with Senator Rob Ortt, with many of my colleagues, including Assemblyman Angelo Morinello, urging the United States Senate to take action on the 3 new proposed commissioners for the International Joint Commission. I'm also pleased to say that one of the nominees by the President was my predecessor, Assemblywoman Jane Corwin. I couldn't think of a more dedicated individual who understands the issues along the southern shore of Lake Ontario and in our region, and she will be a great voice, but yet she's been yet to be confirmed by the United States Senate. So we sent a letter to Senator McConnell and asked him to please take action in a joint letter doing that. So I'm hopeful that in the coming weeks this will get done, because we need her and the other commissioners representing us on that commission.
Washington's been a little preoccupied with some other news, don't you know?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
But things like this are important, and nothing puts the spotlight on that more than an issue that involves safety of people along the shores of Lake Ontario.
That's right, and people are losing, property, and we just need to make sure that the attention is given with a local voice on that commission, like Assemblywoman Jane Corwin. She will be there. She understands the issues facing this district and all of New York State and the whole region across the country, by the way. So let's hope they take action. We are urging that action to be done. These issues need to be resolved, and we need these voices to be heard.
An issue that's come up here in the state legislature now, this is a statewide kind of an issue, but one that very well would impact you folks that are watching this program and your children, if those children happen to be in school, and that is the idea of putting security cameras in places where they would see school buses when the arms go down or the arms swing out to stop the traffic so that the children can safely get on and off the school bus. I think I heard a statistic that said there's 50,000 cars that go past stopped school buses each year in the state of New York.
Yeah, the 50,000 vehicles will pass a stopped school bus. And this is completely outrageous. We had to step in on this issue. It's been something that I know the Transportation Committee has been examining for about 6 years, believe it or not. I happen to be now a member of the Transportation Committee. Recently, we went through the legislation. I know the chairman did a very good job in negotiating a reasonable compromise to move this forward. And last week in the New York State Assembly, we passed legislation which would allow local municipalities to enter an agreement with the school district to permit the cameras to go on the school buses for the bottom line, the protection and safety of our children. I'm very proud to have worked as a member of the Transportation Committee on this legislation and as a general member of the Assembly, because it's necessary. And under the current law, because it has not been adopted yet fully by the Senate and by the governor, you have to have an officer who witnesses an individual pass a school bus and do a summons the appropriate way. This would bypass that, and then the local agency will actually then review it. So the police authority would review it, see that there was the passing of the school bus by a vehicle, and then they can issue the summons. So I think it's a very good compromise. It's a good thing, and it's a good deterrent. I mean, our children are our future. We need to protect them, and we need to take that very seriously. Everyone's very busy in their lives, but we need to take a moment when that school bus stops to also stop and yield the right of way.
There's cameras, these security cameras are everywhere, and some school buses have them on the inside to make sure the kids are behaving, sitting down, doing what they're supposed to. Why not have them on the outside and make sure that they're going to be safe as they get on and off the school bus? Like you say, it seems like kind of a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. Right.
Yeah. a few minutes left to our program. I need to get an update from you on what's going on with the New York State budget. Can you tell me what's going on? I mean, here we are taping this program in the last week of the month of March. The budget is due to be in place in just a few days. We don't even really know if that's going to happen yet.
Yeah, today is March 25th, so depending on when you're taking a look at the program, we'll see how the outcome reveals itself.
You folks may know already better than we do here.
But as of right now, at this moment in time, there has been negotiations that continue. So the Senate and the Assembly both put out their one-house budgets and their requests. We've had the joint budget committee meetings. I was a member of the joint committee meeting on transportation, and I made sure we got our issues out, which are important to the people of Western New York, to make sure we enhance CHIPS funding, which provides local municipalities funding, state funding for their roads, bridges, and culverts. Also, to have the extreme winter recovery money restored back in. For at least the last two budgets where I've been a member of the Assembly, we've allocated $65 million in additional funding to fill those potholes and take care of winter recovery issues. We're urging that to be recovered as well. And then the third point I raised was the arterial highway reimbursement. Now what that is that local municipalities actually contract with the state to take care of some of the state routes which go through the municipalities. That rate for the local municipality has not been reimbursed, has not been increased since the 1980s. So we're asking for a bump, significant bump in that per square mile, I believe, reimbursement for that. So those are issues that we've laid on the table in this joint budget commission. Now, when we're moving forward, a lot of negotiations will be going on. And it's my responsibility to speak up for the people of Western New York, and that's what I intend to do. There are some critical aspects of this budget, which includes the CHIPS funding that we just talked about, making sure our libraries are particularly funded because those libraries also provide broadband service for many local residents in our rural communities who don't have access to broadband. The other thing is education. I'm a big proponent of education and making sure that our local municipalities, our school districts, have funding for our school districts, and I'm going to be focusing on that as well. So these are the issues that in the coming days I will be speaking with members on both sides of the aisle and urging that we tackle these monetary matters so the priorities of the people of Western New York are heard loud and clear.
We're hearing whether it's still a question right now as to whether or not the property tax cap, the 2% tax cap, will become permanent or not. There's a lot of things in this budget. You pick up the New York City tabloids, all you hear about is congestion pricing and all these, what's going on with New York City. There's a lot of things important to upstate New Yorkers that get resolved in a budget like this.
Mike, I'm so glad you brought that up because I have been a strong proponent of the 2% permanent property tax cap going forward. We have lost, since 2010, over 1 million New Yorkers, many of those who live in upstate New York. It's because of high property taxes that are driving people out of here. We have our families here, we have a great area to stay here, and that's why we want to stay here, but we're being forced out. I'm going to continue to fight hard to make sure that permanent property tax cap is in this year's budget.
You folks have now had a chance to hear from your representative, Mike Norris. Let me tell you how you can let him know what's on your mind. There's a couple different ways you can do it, and it's important. As he said, you might want to contact him about whether or not you've gotten the funds you were supposed to get because of what happened with Lake Ontario, or if you want to find out how to take part in that survey. Contact him at his office in Williamsville. Call the office up at 839-4690, or send an email at norrism@nyassembly.gov. And if you want to get to that survey, as he said, just Google Mike Norris, New York State Assembly, follow that important links survey or link, and you'll find how to get to the survey. Easy as that. Mike Norris, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me as always.
It is always a pleasure to see you. Always a pleasure to have you folks along too. We'll hope to see you soon for our next edition of Assembly Calendar.